Peace, family. It's your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to the War on Gaza report here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. We give you a daily update of everything going on in Israel's war on Gaza. It's important to note that we call it the war on Gaza if this is your first time watching, because often the military incursion into the Gaza Strip has been framed as a war of Israel versus Hamas, or it's been framed as a war on terrorism. But the truth is that this is not a traditional war, and this is not a war of two competing but relatively equally resourced or empowered entities. This is a war on the vulnerable. This is a war on the Palestinian people. This is not a war on Hamas. This is not a war on terrorism. This is a war not in Gaza, but on Gaza. And so every single day that we're able to, we are going to give you an update from the Gaza Strip that gives you all of the information that you need. I want to shout out all the people who have been with us since day one. We have been covering this war since not literally day one, but very close to it. And I remember when it was day 100. And I remember when it was day 150 and 200 and 250. I remember when we were looking at the start of Ramadan. And at each moment, so many people said, this can't go any further. This can't go any longer. The presidential cycle came around and people said, well, Joe Biden will have to end it. There were meetings in Qatar, in Egypt, and in Israel and in the United States, sometimes by proxy. And people said, yo, this thing has to end. And it has not. But so many of you all have stood 10 toes down with us as we cover this, as we talk about this. But most importantly, as we fight to create the world that is not yet. That is a world where a ceasefire is produced. That is a world where an arms embargo emerges, and that is a world where ultimately we see a free Palestine. But to get there, we have to, in the short term, address and ultimately end this war on Gaza. I'm going to give you just a few quick updates from the ground. We begin, as we always do, with the numbers. As of today, at least 40,334 people. 40,334 people have been killed in Palestine. But that number is chilling. That number is bone chilling. 40,334 people killed. More than 16,000 of those deaths have been children. 16,000 people have been killed that are children. In addition to that 40,334 number, we also have an extraordinary number of people. At one point it was 5,000, another point it was 8,000, another point it was 10,000. Now we're not sure. It could be 10, it could be 15,000 people are continuing to lay under the rubble. That means that there's there's officially at least 10,000 people under the rubble, maybe more. Those are people who have been dead, but have not been officially declared dead. You've seen the Israeli media and even some pro-Zionist media articles and others suggest that Hamas can't find 11,000 people, or peoples are missing, and as if it's evidence that the Gaza health ministry is inaccurate. And what it really means is that there are dead bodies and they haven't been identified yet, but they're certainly dead. They're indisputably passed away, murdered, killed. In addition to the 40,334 people who have been killed, there's also another 93,356 people who have been wounded in Israel's war on Gaza. When you read casualty reports, it's usually the dead and the wounded. So when we talk about the casualties of this war, we're looking at officially 135,000, almost 134,000, almost, with another, again, 10 to God knows how many, who have not been accounted for by the official numbers. This is all in response to the Hamas attack on October 7th, ostensibly, which caused the death of 1,139 people and hundreds of kidnappings as well. So what we're seeing with every passing day is one of the most disproportionate and indiscriminate military actions in modern history. That's what we're witnessing right now. That's what we're dealing with right now. And so we'll continue to cover it. We'll continue to discuss it. Today, some other updates. Patients and displaced Palestinians are fleeing Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital. If you didn't know, Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital is not the biggest hospital in the Gazan health system. That would have been Al-Shifa. That would have been, we have other hospitals like Al-Ahli, we have other hospitals that matter in a certain way to the Palestinian people. But Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital has come to matter to the Palestinian people, particularly in central Gaza, because it's the only one that's still open. Every other medical facility inside of the central part of the Gaza Strip has been shut down. It's either been bombed, it's been destroyed, or it's been evacuated. And now that Israel has issued another evacuation order, this time in Deir el-Balah, because the evacuation order has come into Deir el-Balah, now people are leaving the hospital. As we've seen for the last 10 months, evacuation orders are an interesting and problematic tactic used by the Israeli government. They use the evacuation order as a means of saying, hey, look, we're giving forewarning. We're giving forewarning to the civilians. We're giving forewarning to the unarmed. We're giving forewarning to the innocent. We're telling them to get out of this area that's about to be targeted for military invasion, go somewhere safe. The problem is, as we've seen now for months, nearly a year, one, the evacuation order often does not provide sufficient time for people to evacuate. And when they do evacuate, quote unquote, in time, they are often directed toward humanitarian corridors or safety shelters, safe harbors that are anything but safe. How many schools have we seen bombed? How many refugee camps have we seen destroyed? How many hospitals have we seen bombed? And then there's the fact that they usually don't give sufficient time. But beyond all that, even if the time were sufficient, and even if the spaces of safety weren't immediately bombed or targeted, where do you go when the entire built environment, the entire built environment of Gaza has been destroyed? More than 80% of Gaza's buildings have been destroyed. Almost everyone there has been displaced. Almost everyone is unhoused. All the schools are destroyed. Most of the hospitals are destroyed. You're in a situation where there's nowhere to go. So telling someone to evacuate from central Gaza and go to southern Gaza, where do you go? Do you go to Rafah? Right? Like, do you go to Nusayrat refugee camp? Do you go to Gaza City? Where do you go? Where do you go? This is the fundamental problem. Anyway, we'll continue to discuss this, but other issues emerging on day 324 of Israel's war on Gaza. UN Chief Antonio Guterres has appealed for, quote, immediate de-escalation after Israel and Hezbollah have exchanged heavy fire across Lebanon's southern border. As you know, there's been a kind of escalation between Hezbollah and Israeli forces on that border since October 7th. And this morning, at least here in the United States, I say this morning because it's already 5 a.m. on Monday in Palestine and Palestine. Um, Hezbollah said that it had successfully completed a retaliatory attack on Israel in response to the killing of Fuad Shukr at the end of July. If you remember, Israel killed Hezbollah commander Fuad Shukr at the end of July. He was a commander for Hezbollah. Earlier on Sunday, Israel said it had launched airstrikes in southern Lebanon in a preemptive attack when it detected that Hezbollah was preparing to attack northern Israel. If you understand the geography, so northern Israel, southern Lebanon, Israel saying, look, Hezbollah was preparing an attack, so we struck first. Hezbollah has a different story. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah denied that, and these attacks have been going on for 10 months now, almost 11 months, but more importantly, these attacks are escalating. It's not just that there's more fighting, it's that the fighting is getting more intense, the destruction is getting more broad. Everyone anticipated Hezbollah's response. I mean, they've been saying literally for weeks, in almost 2 months now, that they are going to retaliate because Israel engaged in a targeted killing of senior Hezbollah command. That's a problem. So they said they fired more than 320 Katyusha rockets at 11 Israeli military bases and barracks. That includes an intelligence base in Glilot, which is near Tel Aviv, the Miron base, and 4 sites in the Golan Heights. If you don't know what the Golan Heights is, the illegally occupied former Syrian territory. This is the context. Now, Israel says that 100 of its jets bombed thousands of Hezbollah launch sites in southern Lebanon about half an hour before Hezbollah was planning its attack. Again, Hezbollah says that ain't true. They say that Israel's trying to save face, that basically Hezbollah's like, look, we bombed the hell out of them and they're trying to look safe. They're trying to look protected. They're trying to look in control by saying they attacked us first. I don't know what's true. Hezbollah and Israel have both at different times engaged in forms of posturing as a form of military strategy, right? To say, hey, we attacked them, we didn't get hit, as a way of showing their strength. It's very unclear what actually happened. But what we do know is that Israel, as Israel is prone to do during these moments, basically shut down the country as it prepared a retaliation to Hezbollah. Yoav Gallant, if you know Yoav Gallant, he is Israel's Minister of Defense. He's also potentially facing a warrant from the International Criminal Court for war crimes. He said that Israel was going to go under a nationwide special situation for 2 nights, for 48 hours, starting 6 a.m. U.S. time on Sunday. They closed the airport. They told civilians they couldn't travel to northern Israel or the Golan. And Netanyahu said that this was done as part of a national strategy and that it was successful, that they'd intercepted drones and that they were winning in the whole nine. Anyway, we don't have to get into all the specifics of what happened with Hezbollah, but only understand that things are intensifying. And at a moment where people are talking about ratcheting down war, it appears that things are heating up. It appears that the region and the possibility of a full regional war has only gotten more likely with Ansarullah, the Houthis of Yemen, still engaged in acts of resistance, with Hamas, engaged in its own military actions in the Gaza Strip, with Hezbollah fighting at the northern Israeli border and the southern Lebanese border. You got Hamas, Hezbollah, and Ansarullah, or Houthis, at the same time. This kind of tension is exacerbated not just because Israel is militarily vulnerable right now, spread somewhat thin, but you have Saudi and Iran. Not to mention what's happening. We could go on down the list, right? With Syria as well, which still remains as a very vulnerable space and certainly continues to be under illegal occupation, as is Iraq. by the United States. And so when all of this is happening, I should say, I won't say legal occupation, but certainly there's an illegal military presence in both places. And against the backdrop of all of that, there are some serious questions about what the Middle East looks like, about what war looks like at this juncture in history. That's something that we take very seriously. And as United States citizen, as a United States citizen, I have to ask myself, and I have to challenge my own country to say, hey, what are we doing here to fund this? What are we doing here to enable this? Anyway, one more piece before we go. Hamas, according to reports, has rejected new Israeli conditions in ceasefire talks. If you didn't know, there have been ceasefire talks taking place recently in Egypt. And these ceasefire talks have produced various waves of optimism, pessimism, frustration, excitement. But this latest round seemed to be capable of producing something different. I haven't been particularly optimistic, but it seemed important. So there have been ceasefire talks that have taken place in Cairo, in Egypt, to advance the possibility of a ceasefire in Gaza. It didn't end well. A delegation from representing Hamas left Cairo this morning or this afternoon. They weren't happy. According to Reuters, this isn't my original reporting, this is Reuters, the news agency. Two Egyptian security sources said that the talks ended without an agreement, and that the mediators presented compromises to Hamas. They also presented them to Israel. Neither said yes. The key sticking points in the talks, according to Al Jazeera, which are mediated still by the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar, include an Israeli presence in the Philadelphia corridor. The Philadelphia corridor is a narrow stretch of land that goes along the southern part of Gaza, connecting Gaza to Egypt. Now, what makes this more interesting is that Hamas has taken what I think is a reasonable position, although philosophically, although as a practical matter, they may have to budge. And that is, Hamas's delegation said that Israel needs to be bound by what was already agreed upon on July 2nd. On July 2nd, President Joe Biden, yes, he is still the president of the United States, and a UN Security Council, well, the resolution of the UN Security Council laid out a plan. And Hamas said, look, we're ready to implement that deal. We want to stop the destruction of the Gaza Strip. We want to stop the violence. We want to create a ceasefire. It said that there are two conditions. These are the two conditions that have stalled talks for months. And we've talked about this right here on the channel. Condition one is a permanent ceasefire. Condition two is a complete Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. Those are both likely non-starters. So of course, Israel may ultimately agree to a permanent ceasefire because they're always going to say that the permanent ceasefire is conditioned upon Hamas's commitment to that pact. And so what Israel often does is they take the smallest provocation, or they manufacture one, and they say that, oh, they broke the ceasefire, let's go back in. So they can create pretexts for that. But what's harder is to justify the full scale re-engagement, military re-engagement inside of Gaza if they agree to complete withdrawal. Netanyahu has said repeatedly, the Israeli Ministry of Defense, Yoav Gallant, a war criminal, probably will be declared one day, has made it clear that that's a non-starter, that Israel will never, ever allow a complete absence of Israeli military forces inside of the Gaza Strip. Now, people will say, well, since from 2005, 2006, that's exactly what they did. And there's a truth to that, except that, of course, they controlled Gaza through land, air, sea, population, registry, electromagnetic sphere. They had effective control by redeploying troops from inside of Gaza to the border of Gaza. But Israel's now going to say, but the last 10 months have proven it to us, and October 7th has proven to us that we need even more intervention, that these people can't govern themselves. It's the same Orientalist colonial logic that in some ways got us to this point. Also, hostage exchange or the return of hostages. That is a necessary sticking point for Israel, as it should be. Hamas has said that any agreement that includes the return of the hostages must also include the return of Gazan residents to their homes. It must also lead to relief and reconstruction of the area and a captive prisoner exchange deal. In other words, we're not just giving you hostages back in exchange for you not killing us anymore. We need something substantive. Some people are optimistic. I am not. And the reason is Netanyahu has no interest in stopping this war. His political destiny is tied to keeping this war going. He said from day one, I will keep this war going until we have total victory against Hamas, even if a deal is reached. What does that even mean? What does it mean to say, even if we reach a ceasefire, we're going to keep going until total victory? Like, so it's basically saying, we're going to keep a military project, Operation Iron Sword is what it's called, Swords of Iron, excuse me. We're going to keep this going in Gaza, even after a ceasefire. So yeah, we'll stop bombing you and shooting you and killing you, not once we reach a ceasefire, but once we completely destroy Hamas. It's a contradiction. It's like, I'll stop hitting you, but so you know I'm going to keep hitting you until I'm tired or until I feel like you've learned your lesson. I've learned my lesson. Can we just agree to stop the violence? Yeah, we can stop the violence. But I'm still going to keep going until I feel like you've learned your lesson. And I don't think you've learned your lesson. And the problem is, Israel wants the complete removal of Hamas as a non-negotiable. Hamas is saying, why would we agree to a deal that leads to our extinction and elimination? Hamas is saying we demand the removal or the departure of all Israeli troops. Israel is saying, why would we make a deal that makes us just as vulnerable as we were on October 7th? So it seems as if no one is going anywhere. And of course, ultimately, Netanyahu saying, I'm going to keep going even if we reach a ceasefire, I'm still going to keep going, is the ultimate non-starter. It's nonsensical. And he understands that. Netanyahu doesn't want to stop war because Netanyahu doesn't want to stop being prime minister because Netanyahu doesn't want to be in court or in jail. So Netanyahu has a vested interest in the doctrine of permanent war. And he's exploiting that right now and will continue to do that. But the problem is, 40,000 Palestinians are dead, probably closer to 50 or 60,000 Palestinians are dead by the most conservative of estimates. People are starving. People are losing years of their lives. People are losing limbs. People are losing parents. People are losing every connection to their past, present, and future. Something needs to be done. And that something can't come solely from the United States. Can't come solely from the United States, but it absolutely, this deal can be stopped by the United States. You dig what I'm saying? This deal can be stopped by the United States. What do I mean by that? I mean, the current situation, the current political configuration, everything that's going on right now can be stopped if the U.S. stops funding it and stops arming it, if the U.S. stops providing political cover for it. The thing that stops Israel from garnering international rebuke is largely the U.S. threatening and sanctioning the ICC and the ICJ, the U.S. using its veto power in the UN Security Council, the U.S. giving Israel money and weapons and effectively a blank check. So ultimately, the reason people say, why you cover this all the time? I cover it because it's the truth, but I also cover it because I have a duty. I have a real duty here as a U.S. citizen to make sure my tax dollars don't go for this. And it's just that simple. Anyway, I want to thank you all for watching the War on Gaza report. I want to shout out a few people here who have made some generous donations tonight. Kenley George has gifted 5 memberships. Shout out to you, Kenley George. Thank you for gifting 5 memberships to the channel, to people. Hopefully y'all grabbed them things already. Baby K also gave 5 memberships. Yo, I'm so grateful. 10 memberships tonight given during the War on Gaza report is a beautiful, beautiful thing, y'all. I appreciate you all. Thank you. I also want to read Rosability's note here. She gave a let's send a super chat and said, "Thank you for doing this, Mark, for bringing your voice and your heart, for sitting in the reality with us, helping us navigate through discussing this in community means so much." I hope you understand. Thank you for that, Rosability, and I hope you all understand that it means so much to me too. I'm struggling some days to do the reports on Gaza because there's so much death, there's so much pain, there's so much senseless violence, so much unmerited suffering that it's hard to do. But doing it in community, talking to you all, building with you all, has made it more bearable. I want to shout out Omega as well, who dropped one in the chat saying much love and support. It's not easy facing these facts, especially as public as this we need. We do. And as we enter this election cycle, I hope that we are prepared to have that conversation. I hope we're prepared to talk about what a real plan for pulling out of the doctrine of permanent war, of divesting from a genocide looks like. What does it look like to end the needless Palestinian suffering? What does it mean to ensure Israel's security? These are all frames and terms that I've heard used. I heard Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, use them during her Democratic nomination speech, her acceptance speech. But now we need to unpack what this stuff means. We need to figure out how we get there. We need to figure out how we get to a space of justice. Anyway, family, that's it for the War on Gaza report. Stay with me though. If I'm going to jump from here directly into the next chat or the next session where I'll be doing a live Q&A session. So if you want to have a live Q&A with me, jump over to live Q&A with Marc Lamont Hill. We're starting right now. In the meantime, family, I want to thank you all for watching. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you're so inclined, family, please consider just hitting that join button. The join button on the desktop is right there. If you're not on the desktop, you have to go through our description, but there's a link there to tell you how to join. Joining the channel makes you a paid monthly subscriber to the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. That allows you to get access to extended video, extra content, early content, but it also allows you to be really a financial anchor for what we're doing here on the channel. And we need, I promise you, we need them financial anchors. This is not created with corporate money. This is not created with a billionaire's check. This is not backed by corporate media. What we do here on the channel comes from the muscle, comes from the ground, comes from my pocket, and it comes from yours. This is people-powered media. So please consider hitting that join button and becoming a member. But if you can't do that, I want you to think about making a one-time payment, no monthly commitment, just tonight, make a payment. Think about it for the month, right? As we approach the end of August, we still have a lot of bills to be paid here. The donations that you make go directly to paying our staff. They go directly to paying the salaries of the people who edit the show, who help me write content, who help me locate stories, who help me put out bonus content. All the stuff that we do, all the stuff that we get, it all comes from the staff. It all comes from the team that is committed to building something with me that I think leaves the media landscape a little better than we found it. That's why we do night school Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. We do office hours on Sundays at 9 p.m. We do coffee and books Saturdays at 9 a.m. And we do the classroom in the cell on Sundays at 9 a.m. Again, all of this comes without any guaranteed money, without any dedicated funds from the wealthy. This is purely on us. So think about it, y'all. Everybody watching right now, we ask that you donate something. If it's $1, that's cool. We're grateful. We're so grateful. If it is $1 million, we're grateful. Thank you. And if it's somewhere between 1 and 1 million, it could be whatever you want it to be. We are grateful. But I will say that if everybody watching right now were to donate $10, if everybody watching right now were to go to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle, you see the links right there to those platforms. If everybody here donated $10, we would be able to meet our financial goals for the month. I'd be able to pay the staff. I'd be able to, build or purchase more equipment. I'd be able to help build the new studio. We could do all of those things with your support. Shout out to you, Alexander Fleming. This is what I mean. That donation is so generous. We're grateful. Thank you so much. So family, just consider it. In the meantime, we're going to head over to the next session. It's right now. It's starting right now. It is a live Q&A session. You can ask me anything. I know y'all be wanting to talk politics, and that's cool. I know y'all be wanting to talk about the serious matters in the world. That's fine. The world is serious right now. We can also talk about differently serious stuff like music and art, or we can talk about unserious stuff. I'm a very unserious person. I'm sure somebody would say anyway. So let's talk about unserious stuff. Whatever you want to do, we'll do right here on the channel. Stay with me. We'll see you in a sec.